My wife's affair with her boss, then she faked her pregnancy to hide it, and now she's threatening to take half our $250, $0 house and $500, $0 life savings in a brutal legal fight. Help, I'm losing my mind. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am, trying to make sense of the mess my life has become. It all started with what I thought was just a small change, little things, really. My wife had always been a little bitchy, but lately she'd been extra cold, distant, and downright hostile. At first I blamed work stress or some random mood swing, but then I noticed the little things. Her phone always tucked away, her sudden obsession with her appearance, secretive texts that she'd quickly hide when I walked in the room. That should have been my first warning sign, but I brushed it off as paranoia. Things took a sharp turn when I came home early one day. I wasn't supposed to be back until late, but I had a gut feeling. I wanted to surprise her, maybe catch her off guard. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw her car parked in the garage, which was normal. But what was normal was the sound of muffled voices coming from the house. I slowed down, trying to listen, and I caught a snippet of a conversation that made my stomach drop. It was her voice, angry, loud, and unmistakably talking to someone else. I crept closer, peeking through the window, and there he was, her boss, Mark. I saw her sitting on his lap, whispering something I couldn't hear, but the way they were touching, it was clear they were more than just colleagues. I stood there frozen, my mind racing. My wife, the woman I'd loved and trusted for 10 years, was cheating on me with her boss. But that wasn't all. The worst part was the way she looked at him, like he was the only thing that mattered. I felt a surge of rage, betrayal, and heartbreak all at once. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there in front of me. I watched for a few more seconds, then turned around and walked back to my car, trying to process what I'd just seen. I felt numb, like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this to me, to us? And the biggest shock, I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know what to say or how to start. The next few days were a whirlwind. I started noticing more signs, her lies about where she was going, her sudden obsession with her phone, the way she'd get defensive if I even mentioned her work. But I kept my cool, waiting for the right moment. Then one night I decided I'd had enough. I sat her down after dinner, my heart pounding. I told her I knew about her affair, about Mark, and how I'd seen them together. Her face twisted into this nasty smirk, like she was proud of herself for hiding it so well. She everything, called me paranoid, said I was imagining things. But I had proof, texts, photos, everything. Still, she kept lying, spinning stories about how it was just a fling, that she was sorry but she needed space, that she was stressed and overwhelmed. That's when I realized I was dealing with a woman who was good at lying, manipulative as hell, and utterly indifferent to what I was feeling. It hurt so bad, I felt like my chest was caving in. I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, my life savings to buy this house, and now I was faced with the reality that she was willing to throw it all away for some affair. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I kept going over everything, trying to find some way to fix it, some hope that she'd come clean and we could work through this. But deep down, I knew it was more complicated than that. I was angry, yes, but mostly devastated. How do you come back from something like this? How do you even begin to rebuild when the person you loved has been lying to your face for months? I felt lost, betrayed, and honestly, just tired of fighting for something that seemed to be already broken. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at the same way anymore. The woman I thought I knew was hiding a whole different person, cold, manipulative, and completely indifferent to the damage she was causing. She kept lying, spinning stories about how she was just stressed at work, how it was a mistake, how she didn't mean for it to happen. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had seen her with my own eyes, and the evidence was staring me right in the face. The texts she tried to hide, the secret meetings she'd had with Mark, everything pointed to something much darker than she wanted to admit. I started digging into her phone, going through her messages when she wasn't around. It was a mess of flirtatious texts, late-night calls, and plans to meet up. I found pictures of her and Mark together, some taken at a fancy hotel, others in some restaurant I'd never even heard of. Every single piece of evidence was like a dagger twisting in my gut. I felt rage, heartbreak, and a deep sense of betrayal. How could she do this? To me? To everything we built. I was furious at her, but I was also hurt, deeply hurt that the woman I loved and trusted could be so willing to throw away everything for some meaningless sex. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I wanted to do it on my terms. I planned to catch her in a lie, to make her realize I wasn't going to be played anymore. So I set a trap. I left my phone out one night knowing she'd try to sneak a message or call Mark again. Sure enough, I caught her trying to delete texts. I saw her hurriedly typing, her fingers trembling slightly. I confronted her right then and there. She tried to deny everything, told me I was crazy, that I was paranoid, that Mark was just a friend. But I had proof. I showed her the messages, the photos, the hotel receipt I found in her purse, everything. Her face went pale and her mouth opened to lie again, but I cut her off. "You've been lying to me for months," I said, voice trembling with a mixture of anger and pain. "How could you do this? How could you betray me like this?" She looked at me with that bitchy smirk like she was proud of herself. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "It's not what you think. Mark means nothing. It was just sex and I was stressed, okay? I didn't mean for it to go this far." That was her favorite line, just sex, like that somehow made everything okay. But I knew better. I knew it was more than that. It wasn't just some fling. It was a full-blown affair, and she was lying to cover her ass. The more she lied, the angrier I got. I felt like I was losing my mind. I'd always been a stable guy, honest, straightforward. But now I was questioning everything. My wife was sleeping with her boss, lying about a pregnancy she faked just to keep the cover-up going, and threatening to take half our house and all our savings in a legal battle she knew she couldn't win. And she was doing all this while acting like a victim, like I was the one causing the problem. I couldn't believe I married someone so manipulative. She'd always been bitchy, but this was next level. She'd lie, cheat, manipulate, and then turn around and blame me for everything. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies. I started thinking about what to do next, how to protect myself, my money, and my sanity. I knew she was already planning her next move, probably trying to spin the story that I was the one cheating or that I was unstable. But I refused to be played anymore. I was done with her lies. I just didn't know how to move forward without losing everything. My house, my savings, my peace of mind. I felt like I was losing my mind, and honestly, I still am. After I laid everything out on the table, proof, evidence, everything, I expected her to crack, to finally admit the truth or at least show some remorse. Instead, just looked at me with that bitchy smirk, like she was amused by how much she was getting away with. She crossed her arms and threw out some bullshit about how I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, and that Mark was just a friend she'd been venting to about work stress. She even had the nerve to say that I was insecure, that she deserved better than my accusations. I was so furious I could barely speak, but inside I was boiling. I knew I had to do something more than just argue with her. This wasn't just a fling or a moment of weakness. It was a full-blown affair with her boss, someone she'd been cheating on me with behind my back for months. And the worst part, she faked a pregnancy to hide it. I found out. Later, she'd even gone as far as buying fake ultrasounds and doctor's notes, things that made me question everything about her. How could she do this? How could she lie so blatantly, then turn around and blame me for being suspicious? I started to think about what I could do legally. We had a house worth around $250, $0, and about $500,000 in savings. I knew she was threatening to take her half if we went to court, and I couldn't let that happen. I'd worked my ass off to buy that house, and I wasn't about to let her walk away with half of everything just because she decided to cheat and lie her way through our marriage. I also knew she was threatening a brutal legal fight. She'd already hired a lawyer, I found out, and was trying to spin the story that I was the one cheating or abusing her. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had to fight back. I started gathering everything, screenshots of her texts, photos, bank statements, the fake ultrasound she'd faked, even the receipts from her secret meetings with Mark. I wanted to be prepared. I knew she'd try to twist everything around, but I had to stand my ground. If she thought I was just going to roll over and let her take everything, she was dead wrong. I also reached out to a lawyer myself, just to get a sense of what I was up against. It was clear she was already planning her attack, and I had to do the same. I didn't want to lose my house, my savings, or my dignity. I had given her my best years, my trust, and my money, and now she was trying to take it all in some twisted game of revenge. I couldn't let her win, not like this. That's when I started planning my next move: how to protect what was mine, how to expose her lies, and how to make sure she didn't walk away with a single dime more than she deserved. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. I'd always thought I was a rational guy, but this whole situation was messing with my head. I kept replaying everything: her sneaking around, the fake pregnancy, the lies about Mark, her threats. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I wondered how I'd gotten here, how I'd trusted someone who'd lie and cheat on me so easily. And I kept asking myself, what do I do now? Do I fight for the marriage? Do I just walk away? The thought of losing everything, especially our house and savings, was unbearable. I knew I needed to act fast to get ahead of her before she could spin more lies or drag things out in court. My mind was racing, trying to figure out the best way to protect myself and to make her pay for what she'd done. In the days that followed, I threw myself into action. I couldn't just sit around and let her manipulate her way out of this. I started documenting everything: every text, every email, every phone call she made to Mark. I even went as far as installing a hidden camera in the house, just to catch her in the act if she tried to do anything else sneaky. I wasn't proud of it, but I knew I had to cover all my bases. If she was going to lie her way out of this, I needed proof that she was lying. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, acting like the victim, throwing tantrums, and accusing me of being controlling or paranoid. She even had the audacity to say I was abusive because I raised my voice during one of our heated arguments. That really set me off. I knew her game. She was trying to paint me as the bad guy so she could sway the court or anyone else who listened. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had plenty of evidence of her infidelity, her lies, and her fake pregnancy. One night I found a new message from Mark, this time a deleted one. I managed to recover it from my phone's backup. It was explicit, flirtatious, and clear as day. It cemented everything I already knew. I took screenshots, printed out the message, and kept it safe. I also discovered she'd been taking money from our joint account, small amounts here and there, but enough to raise suspicion. I confronted her about it and she just shrugged, saying she needed extra cash for her fake pregnancy appointment or some bullshit excuse. I knew she was lying, but I needed more concrete proof. I also started talking to a lawyer. I wanted to know my options, what I could do to protect my assets, and how to handle her threats of legal action. The lawyer told me I had a good case, especially since I had proof of her affair, her faked pregnancy, and her attempts to hide money. It was a relief, but also terrifying. I was about to go into a legal battle with my wife, and I wasn't sure I was ready for how brutal it could get. She'd already threatened to take half the house and all our savings, and I knew she'd fight dirty. That's when I decided I needed to get ahead of her. I started compiling a detailed timeline of all her lies and actions, organizing all my evidence in one place. I also reached out to a private investigator, someone who could help me verify her story and maybe even catch her in another lie. I was determined not to be. I wanted to be prepared for whatever she threw at me. Emotionally, I was hanging by a thread. Every new discovery made me feel more betrayed, more angry, more helpless. I'd always been a stable guy, but now I felt like my world was falling apart. I couldn't believe she'd been lying and cheating behind my back for so long, and that she was now threatening to take everything I worked for. I kept asking myself how I got here, how I was supposed to fix this, or if I even should. Part of me wanted to fight for the marriage, to save what was left of our life together, but a bigger part knew that she'd already crossed a line. I was torn between wanting justice and just wanting to get out of this nightmare. Every day was a new challenge. I had to keep my cool, stay focused, and make sure I had all my ducks in a row. I knew she was planning her next move, probably trying to spin some story to turn friends or family against me. but I refused to let her manipulate me anymore. I had to be smart, stay calm, and prepare for the legal fight ahead. The thought of losing my house, my savings, or even my dignity was terrifying, but I knew I had no choice but to stand my ground. This wasn't just about money or property anymore. It was about my life, my sanity, and reclaiming what's mine. The legal side of things started to take shape faster than I expected. I met with my lawyer multiple times, every session revealing more about what I was up against. Was throwing everything she had, threats, lies, and even accusations of abuse just to try to turn the tide. She claimed I was controlling, that I was emotionally abusive, and that I was trying to ruin her reputation. It was all part of her game, but I knew better. I had the proof, texts, emails, the fake ultrasound, the receipts from her secret meetings, and the evidence of her affair with Mark. I kept reminding myself that I had the facts on my side, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. One of the most shocking things I uncovered was her plan to fake a pregnancy. She'd gone as far as buying a fake ultrasound, fabricating doctor's notes, and even hiring a woman to pretend she was pregnant. She told everyone she was expecting, trying to keep the illusion alive that she was carrying Mark's child. That's how deep her lies went. I found the ultrasound in her closet, hidden behind some old clothes. It looked real enough, but I knew it was fake. That discovery made my stomach turn. She was willing to lie about something as serious as pregnancy just to cover her affair and keep the illusion going. Meanwhile, she was also trying to hide money, small amounts here and there, but enough to make me suspicious. I found withdrawals from our joint account, some cash she'd taken from her savings, and even a few payments to a lawyer she'd hired behind my back. I confronted her again, and she just shrugged, saying she needed the money for her pregnancy expenses or legal advice. I saw through her lies, but I knew I had to act fast before she drained everything or spun more lies to turn people against me. The most frustrating part was her threats to take half our house, which is worth around $250, $0, and $500,000 in savings. She was already talking about a brutal legal fight, and I knew she'd try to manipulate the court with her lies. I had to protect what was mine. I started working with my lawyer on a strategy. How? To prove her infidelity, her faked pregnancy, and her attempts to hide money. I also hired a private investigator to dig into her activities further. I wanted to catch her in more lies, gather more evidence, and make sure I wasn't when the court date came. Emotionally, I was hanging on by a thread. Every new piece of evidence made me angrier, more betrayed. I kept asking myself how I'd gone from being a happy, stable guy to this mess. I'd always believed in honesty, trust, and loyalty, things I thought valued too. But she'd thrown all that away for some affair, some lie, some fake pregnancy. Honestly, I felt like I was losing my mind. The betrayal cut so deep, it was hard to breathe sometimes. I kept thinking about our life together, all the plans we'd made, and how she'd just thrown it all away. But I also knew I had to stay strong for myself, for the truth, and for whatever justice I could get. Now, I'm in a place where I'm preparing for a fight I don't want but know I have to win. I'm making sure I have all my evidence ready, that I'm clear on what I want, mainly to keep my house and my savings, and that I'm not going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I've realized that this isn't just about money or property. It's about my dignity, my sanity, and reclaiming my life from someone who clearly isn't who I thought she was. I don't know how this is going to end, but I do know I can't just walk away and let her win. I have to stand my ground, no matter how much it hurts. The court date finally arrived, and I'd never felt so anxious in my life. All the evidence I'd gathered, the texts, the fake ultrasound, the receipts, the witness statements from the pie, everything was laid out. The lawyer tried every trick in the book, denying, spinning stories, accusing me of abuse, even claiming I was the one cheating. But I had the truth on my side, and I was prepared. I could see through her lies, her bitchy smirk slipping as the judge reviewed the evidence. When the judge finally made her ruling, it was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I was awarded full custody of the house, with claim to half of everything dismissed. The court saw through her manipulations, her fake pregnancy, her affair, her attempts to hide money. She was ordered to pay court costs and restitution for the false documents she'd created. It was a victory, but it felt hollow. I'd lost my trust, my marriage, and part of my peace of mind. Still, I felt relief knowing I'd fought for what was right, for the truth. In the aftermath, tried to spin things differently, claiming I was the real villain, that I'd been abusive and controlling. But the evidence was clear, and most people who knew us saw through her act. She moved out of the house, and I started rebuilding my life from scratch. I sold the house, taking the money I fought so hard to protect, and I began therapy to deal with the emotional scars. I realized I'd been to believe in her, to think she was the woman I'd married. But I also learned some hard lessons about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting yourself. Looking back, I wish I could say I feel completely whole again. I don't, but I do feel stronger. This whole ordeal taught me that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, even when it feels impossible. I learned to trust my instincts, to document everything, and to never let anyone manipulate or lie their way into your life. I also learned that some people are just not worth the pain. They'll lie, cheat, and fake everything just to get what they want. To anyone out there going through something similar, my advice is simple. Gather your proof, stay calm, and don't let them manipulate you. It's ugly and exhausting, but standing your ground is the only way to get justice. And no matter how much it hurts, remember that your worth isn't defined by someone else's lies or betrayal. You have to take control, fight for your life, and always remember that the truth eventually comes out.